Doing that, we're also having a heavy emphasis on STEM education. 21st century skills are embedded within our Race to the Top application, as is great amounts of support to teachers. We have a document on our website that aligns the requirements of House Bill 1, Race to the Top, and school improvement, and the potential reauthorization of ESEA. All of them align. Nothing is in opposition, nothing is different. So the work coming down the pike that we're seeing in ESEA reauthorization is very similar and complements the work in Race to the Top. In fact, Race to the Top is the blueprint for ESEA. We have a document online. It's called an Independent Guide to Ohio's Race to the Top application, which outlines very clearly what our goals are. They're very broad, but they're important not only to the economic development of our state, but they're also very important to the academic achievement of every student in our state. For example, we have one broad goal of increasing graduation rates by 0.5% each year. Now that doesn't seem like a lot, but consider this. In the class of 2008, 22,000 of our high school students didn't graduate. That means we collectively have failed 22,000 students in Ohio. Not only that, but those 22,000 students, when they're rolling out, are also becoming increasingly dependent on the judicial system and on the social service industry across the state. So even if your high school graduation rate is at 98%, that is not any consolation if you happen to be in the 2% who didn't graduate. Because the likelihood of you securing a job that's productive in the future is very limited from the get-go. But if we do increase 0.5% each year of the grant and into the future, we will have an additional 600 students graduating each year. And I think that we can do that. We can accomplish that with some concerted effort. We have a huge achievement gap in our school districts. We have a huge achievement gap in Ohio, not just between white students and students of color. We also have a huge achievement gap between wealthy students and students who are living in poverty. If we had changed, if you consider students, again back to 2008, there were at least 8,000 black students in Ohio who are not proficient in math. 8,000 black students in Ohio not proficient in math. Is that acceptable to anyone in this room? If the performance gaps had been decreased just by 50%, an additional 3,500 more black students would have earned proficiency in math in each of the 7 grade levels that were tested, for an estimated total of 24,000 more black students being proficient in math. And when you think about the total cumulative effect of that, we know that students who feel comfortable in math are much more likely to engage in the STEM fields, which Ohio desperately needs. So there are many avenues to this. Let me share some of the what Race to the Top is not, because there is a lot of sort of fear-mongering and rumors going around. Ohio's application, Race to the Top, is not establishing a system of merit pay for teachers across the state. I can't say this enough. Every local district who participates gets to decide at the local level what they will do with teacher compensation packages. It is not about removing seniority. It is not about overriding collective bargaining agreements. Now, what it is, it's hard work. If we were asked to do the work before and we had accomplished it, we wouldn't be at this place. It is hard work. And it engages a lot of trust and engenders and requires a lot of trust from the districts to the state and vice versa, and at the local level between individuals within that district. It engenders a lot of trust. But our students' fate is really in our balance. We get to decide every single day the quality system that we want in every school district in Ohio. So I encourage you to help us out. We absolutely need to gain additional LEAs to sign on to Race to the Top. We also are aware that we have to make a stronger case about closing the achievement gaps and increasing graduation rates. Again, this goes back to every child in Ohio deserves to have the highest quality education possible, every child. One of the things that we did, I'll just mention as an afterthought, one of the things that we did change in this application is established a floor so that every district in Ohio will receive no less than $100,000. We know the work is complicated. There were districts, because of the federal formula, that quite literally would have received $5,000. Every district will receive a minimum of $100,000 in order to when they participate in Race to the Top. So those MOUs are due on May 14th. If you look on our website and you see a dollar amount there, that's the minimum dollar amount that a school district will receive, because we know that we won't get 100%, but we certainly would like as many as possible. We know, given the 21st century, that we have a huge responsibility to provide a quality first century education to all of our students so that they have the skills necessary to adapt to our changing world and contribute to making Ohio an innovative and vibrant place to work. And I know when I'm in your districts, I get a sense that education is changing. And let me give you one example that just happened a couple weeks ago. And this is, where's Upper Arlington? Are they here? Upper Arlington, you're here. So here's one of your students, and who will be coming to the middle school next year, by the way, if you're in middle school, and you'll see her in high school. So I'm over at Upper Arlington. I was at an elementary school. They were rededicating a school that had gone under renovations, a beautiful school. And I'm watching everything unfold, and this young girl comes up to me and hands me a program. And she informs me her name is Zoe, even though it's pronounced Zoe. She'd like to be called Zoe. So I watched Zoe work the room, and I thought, wow, I could take a few lessons from this girl. It's a little pipsqueak of a girl running around the room, and she runs up to the front, and she asks the senior citizens in the front if they have enough water, do they know where the bathrooms are, and she's walking around and talking to little kids. I thought, wow, this girl knows how to work the room. This is an example of how kids now are taking possession of their learning. So she comes up to me, and she did not know who I was, and she says to me, she told me who she was and what grade level she was in. She was in 5th grade. I said, oh, you must be really excited about going to 6th grade next year. All set? And she looked at me and she says, well, I hope to make it to 6th grade. And you know, anytime that happens, you're almost fearful of saying, like, so tell me about that, because something major might be occurring. And like she never showed up at school or something like that. And she says to me, well, you know, the week's coming up, I got to take that OAT. And that may determine my fate. I said, really? And then she looks at me and she says, oh, by the way, I forgot, it's not OAT, it's OAA. They changed the name. So I'm thinking, wow, I'm the state superintendent. I didn't know they changed the name, so thanks for sharing. So she says to me, I said, well, really? I said, so what's the difference? She says, well, OAT, that was a test. That's what I'm taking. Those people need to know it's a test. It's not an assessment. I said, what's the difference between a test and an assessment? She said, a test, you know, you take it one time, you take it, done, it's out the door, it goes somewhere, who knows what happens to it? It's a test. Now, an assessment, on the other hand, direct quote, she says, on the other hand, an assessment is you take it, and then the teacher works with you, she tells you what you did good, she tells you what you have to improve on, and then a couple weeks later, maybe a month, when the teacher gets around to it, she gives you another assessment, she can tell you how much you grew. Sometimes you did better, and then you work more, and then you take another assessment. That's what an assessment is. So I told her who I was, and she was a little embarrassed, and she said, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, no, I'm going to take that back to our group. They need to hear that. I said, well, if you're ever down at the department, maybe you'd like to visit me. She said, who knows? Maybe I'll take your job. So clearly, you know, and I spoke to her teacher later, and I think she first apologized to me. I said, oh, please don't. I'm going to tell this story everywhere, because that's how our kids' lives are changing and learning. They're telling us what they know. They're learning about testing. They're learning about assessment. They realize, in that case, that they have some power over their own learning. And clearly, when I talked about students graduating with a sense of purpose, please, Upper Arlington folks, you don't need to give Zoe any more sense of purpose. She's got it, because she's going to have my job. Right before I introduce Dr. Millett, let me just end with a poem I just recently found in a book, because I really think it exemplifies who we all are as educators every single day. And it's the kind of thing we bring to our roles that cannot be measured by any accountability system, but which I believe lies in the heart of every single educator. The poem is this: you need not see what someone is doing to know if it is his vocation. You have only to watch his eyes. A cook mixing a sauce, a surgeon making a primary incision, a clerk completing a bill of lading. All wear the same rapt expression, forgetting themselves in their most important primary function. How beautiful it is that eye on the object look. Let me thank you for the work that you do each and every day, because such is the look of an educator or a student who is totally engaged in their work. And this is, in fact, our greatest mission: to engage our students in their work in relevant learning so they capture that rapt, intense look, and they are so totally focused on their learning that they suddenly forget that they're in a building called school. Thank you one more time.